There you go. But who doesn't love tacos?
There's haters out there, of course.
Oh my gosh. If you're hating on tacos, what are you doing with your life? Stop it right now. Welcome to the Maximo Show here at VodPod Media. It's another wonderful Tuesday night. We're taking over Tuesdays with Mr. Tuesday Night. We got to thank all of our viewers, all of our regular watchers, everyone subscribing on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you may be watching the show. Subscribe, like, comment, share, because we've got the meta OG influencer who's been doing it for, dare I say influencer?
Yeah, and that is the marketing term in 2022.
Because you were doing this before there was a term.
Puro Pinche just turned 12 years old officially.
12
and
years
then
old.
Probably about 2 more years before that unofficially. But yeah, every couple of years that word changes and then it gets to the point where people don't like it and then they change the term.
Hey, and we having a good time. But I got to ask you too, what is your favorite breakfast taco anyway?
Oh.
Because we always got to start out. I feel like every week we talk about tacos somehow.
Yeah.
It's like random. It's not like, oh, tacos are the topic of the show, but
right.
Tacos are cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of our everyday lives, right? Yeah. So, and I'm a puro kind of girl. I just like bean and cheese. And if it's a really good bean and cheese, like that's my favorite. Breakfast tacos are something special. You know, every time I have friends that move out of San Antonio, they're always like, I can't find breakfast tacos here. And I'm like, I know, come back. But yeah, bean and cheese is my go-to.
That's my son's go-to as well. And so if you're watching, drop us in the comments, what's your favorite breakfast taco? I am a simple guy too. I like potato and egg.
I also love potato and egg.
I'm not picky.
Yeah, I love potato and egg. Am I allowed to say shout out to any businesses?
Give them a shout out.
There is a place here called Carnitas Don Raul.
Okay.
They're actually from Mexico. They were on the Taco Chronicles on Netflix. They have a truck at Broadway News, the shops at Broadway News, and they have an amazing bean and cheese. I'm always afraid to tell people because I don't want them to know and go and then I have to wait in line forever like you do in Austin, other cities. But they just like caramelize the cheese. There's a couple different kinds of cheese. They make their own beans with probably the carnitas fat. I'm not sure they make carnitas there, but it's in a really good bean and cheese.
Yeah. So we got to welcome officially to the table Stephanie Guerra, founder, creator of Puro Pinche, and all of the wonderful things that she does in the community. We were talking about her board advocacy. She's just on the board of directors of
Planned Parenthood South Texas. I'm in my second year, and I'm also the community engagement committee chair, which is my first year, and it's fun, but obviously there is so much chaos surrounding reproductive rights this year. The trigger law actually goes into effect this Thursday. So all I can do is encourage everybody to get involved, go to any fundraisers. I do think there is one this Thursday for Buckle Bunnies at Brick. But this obviously affects people of color the most and disproportionately, and we need all the help we can get.
Yeah, well, listen, I give you much credit for getting involved in this stuff because you don't have to do it, right?
True.
Most people could just go about their business, but you're also utilizing your platform and your influence that you do have in the community to get involved in this stuff, which is extremely important.
Yeah, and it's taken me years to learn how to properly channel what I'm feeling and thinking and how I want to help into my platform. But it's good. You have to speak up. You can't sit there and stay quiet. I know a lot of people do, and they're intimidated or they're afraid. Puro Pinche used to be all about music and arts and fun and going out. And it's really turned into this whole other resource of just how to be involved in the community and help our neighbors out.
Yeah. So let's go back. So you're born and raised where?
Here in San Antonio.
Of course, right?
Yes.
San Antonio. And so talk to people who don't know about San Antonio. Like, we have a worldwide audience, people that chime in across the seas, people up in the Midwest, here in the United States. Talk a little bit about the culture of San Antonio, just for those people who haven't been here.
So San Antonio is South Texas. We used to be Mexico. That's why when people ask where all the Mexicans are, they're here in San Antonio. Our city is almost 70% Latino. It's a very multicultural town. When I was young living here, We had 5 military bases. So there were people from all over the world, all over the country living here in San Antonio. And there was a big blend. And my family is from South Texas, Mexico, Texas. They've been here for generations and generations. And right now, it's a charming place that it has its growing pains.
Yeah.
Just if you look outside the studio, we're going through gentrification in lots of areas that are lower income, middle income, where Black and brown people live. Sometimes it's hard for me to see our city go through that and not be able to do anything about it. But that is why I try to be involved and active and pay attention to city council meetings and local nonprofits and organizations. But San Antonio really is a great place to live. Our top industries are hospitality and tourism and medical and military. So those are all people that care. We're really a compassionate city. I love getting, to be like a tour guide unofficially all the time for San Antonio. I grew up on the south side, on the west side, on the north side of town, and just have a love for trying to connect all parts of the city locally to locals. There's a big disconnect between people that live on one side of the city to the other, and then to visitors who maybe only see the Riverwalk or the Pearl sometimes, and they need to see what's outside of that. But come visit us.
Yeah, well, look, there you have it, folks. Everyone moves to San Antonio tomorrow from that wonderful pitch. But yeah, I mean, you're right on a lot of these things. I mean, a lot of people are moving to Texas in general. I mean, most people think it's, post-COVID, or we know COVID's not really gone, but people making moves with the economy, moving to where jobs are, moving where regulations aren't as stringent with, the whole COVID pandemic situation.
No masks. We ripped those off 3 months in.
Yeah. And so, I've known you to be outspoken, and I think outspoken is a term that can have like a negative cachet, which it really shouldn't. We all have a voice, but, you've talked about things like gentrification. How come that they're building these expensive apartments downtown that no one can afford, and the communities that live there have to move?
Right. It's tough. I went through that myself with my family. We grew up on the south side and west side. And when I was, starting elementary school, all the realtors told my parents, like, oh, well, you only want to go to the north side. That's where the good schools are. And that still happens today. So you see like the massive sprawl outside of 1604, Culebra, Stone Oak, all of those areas. And then you get to grow up and choose where to live. And then you still can't afford to live where you used to live because now it's been gentrified and it's really hard. And I tell this story kind of often, but I actually moved onto Ceballos Street in Southtown. And I'm a renter, haven't bought a house over there. I don't think we can afford a house over there. But right across the street from us on 35, Ceballos turns into Laredo. My great-grandparents actually had a house there. They walked from Guanajuato to Texas back in the early 1900s. They brought their 6, 7, 8 kids, had a house right on the access road, and there was no access road back then when they had their house. They actually knocked their house down to build the access road and the highway for 35. So it puts things into perspective for me a lot to know that I live 2 blocks away from where my great grandparents did, and they had next to nothing. They were raising 9, 10, 11 kids. And it went up, they kept having more kids. So, and just know, like, my grandma used to work off of Laredo. Her brother-in-law owned Apco, which is a meat packing company on Laredo, the little cantina there. I grew up over there, and just seeing, that the houses now are like $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 to live there. People are getting priced out of apartments. That it's just not an affordable time for a lot of people right now. And I do think that the city has a lot of initiatives in place, and they're trying to help. San Antonio Housing Authority, there is people that are helping our houseless people population. But it's just taken a really long time, and the pandemic exacerbated all that. San Antonio was already going through it. I used to work for a nonprofit called Follow Media. And so they actually reported on all the disparities in San Antonio. And we don't have the poorest or the richest people in the country, but we have the biggest gap in income from the richest to the poorest in our community. So it's just noticeable. You just drive around the city and you can see it everywhere. So it's hard. You want to do more, and then you also don't want to be a part of the problem.
It's hard, though.
And it's really like when we buy a house, where can we buy a house and not gentrify an area, a neighborhood? But we're working on that. We're trying.
Well, we have our views on this show about capitalism and how can you, even survive in the system of capitalism without fighting it with capitalism. And we can't just say, hey, let's just go live out in the middle of nowhere and just survive. We could try, but it's really not sustainable in this sort of lifestyle that we try to live.
Right. I mean, my husband might like that, but
I could probably do it. It'd be an episode of Survivor.
He's from West Texas, so he's always like, let's just sell everything and get in an RV and go. And in theory, it sounds lovely, but like I'm a city slicker.
Yeah.
And I also just want to be involved in the community and help, wherever I can. But
yeah. And you should too.
Tough.
I mean, it shows your heart that you want to be involved in the community that you live in. You're getting involved. You're advocating for these things, which I think you do it in a good way. I mean, there's some people that are very nasty. You know what I mean? Like,
I used to be a lot when I was younger. 12 years ago, I was younger, right? And I used to be a lot more vocal, and I probably pissed people off from time to time by just being, brutally honest about things that were going on. And I tried to be tactful about the way I say things now, but still keep things true and based on facts.
Yeah.
So, I always have been like an emotional thinker, and I've tried as I've aged and grown and experienced to not be so emotional, so that way I don't have to argue so much. And it's helped because, back in the day, it's even worse now, but as soon as you said something somebody doesn't like, they unfollowed you or blocked you or unfriended you. And I really don't lose that many followers anymore. So I think I'm doing okay with trying to keep things neutral on Puro Pinche. But yeah, I mean, there's people that will call me out for supporting reproductive rights, for supporting immigration rights, and all kinds of things. And then there's also people that are like, well, you're a white Tina, like you're white passing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, cool. But what's that have to do with what I'm talking about?
They're grabbing at straws.
Yeah. You're not puro enough. You live in Southtown. I'm like, me and my husband have 2 incomes. We rent an apartment that's hundreds of dollars cheaper than anywhere else. And we're not in a position because of all of these economic factors to buy a house.
Yeah.
And it gets hard, and then it's like you don't always have to explain yourself.
That's what I was just gonna say. Like, who do you owe an explanation to?
Nobody. But to me, it's like I want people to know that I do understand them and I can relate and I know where they're coming from. And I feel their pain, and I know what we're all going through collectively, and it's not spread evenly. But that doesn't make me care any less, or just be high and mighty sitting on my pinche throne, while I'm spewing this information about how to give back to your community.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about counterpoint culture, because there's a couple things to be said on that. But we got to give a shout out to Mickey Sweet and Cheryl Meadow, who watch the show every week.
Them.
And they said, oh my gosh, it's Steph. Thank you so much. We effing love her.
Oh, well, I effing love them too. And they have been probably doing their stuff longer than me.
Some OGs.
Yes. They have award-winning podcast shows,
radio,
live performances, radio. They are the OGs.
We're going to bring them on this show as well. Yes. They've been watching the show and supporting us for a long time. So shout out to them. Shout out to everybody watching. So one of the things I want to talk about with that, because COVID, I want to talk a little bit about COVID. Now, you've been a vocal advocate for the vaccines. Can you just tell us a little bit about your stance and like why people should be vaccinated, perhaps?
I mean, I try to read the facts, and I read a lot, and I try to read from reputable sources, and I don't believe everything. I'm gullible, but I don't believe everything I see out there. But I did see in San Antonio, especially in El Paso, South Texas, the Valley, how hard we were being hit with COVID. And I saw lots of memes about this, but it was like if rich people are getting the vaccine,
Yeah.
that there's probably nothing wrong with it.
That's a good point.
And you should get it too. There were political leaders that were saying COVID wasn't real, and then they were the first ones to get the vaccine. And if they were that worried about it and trusted the science behind it and got the vaccine, why wasn't everyone in our community getting it? And it was a free resource. And, anything I can do to amplify the messaging around these free community resources, I'll always try my best to. Personally, saw, a lot of people in my family and everybody I know on social media suffering, losing loved ones, especially our abuelos and, people who were way too young to die. I've had COVID 3 times now.
Are you serious?
Yes. And, the first time there were no vaccines available, I got pretty sick. And I wasn't hospitalized, but it was really scary. Dealing with long COVID from that now, got it again in the winter when Omicron spiked.
Yeah.
And we were outdoors, and I still got it. And then I got it again this summer just from being around a handful of people, because this new strain, is like evading everything, and they can't get to that next COVID booster fast enough, right?
Yeah.
But I think just like abortions, the wealthy people will always find a way to have the medical treatment, to have the vaccines, to get life-saving procedures. But people of color and lower income people, we won't. And so we need to tell everybody what's available to them, how they can get it, if they can get a ride, if they need something, let me know, or can I connect you with someone? But I've felt truly passionate about trying to save even just a couple people and letting them know about the vaccine. And it was amazing to me actually to see how many people responded every time I would post about the vaccine and just say thank you. I didn't know where I could get it. I didn't know if my parents could get it. I didn't know how to help my neighbors. And I also realized, social media is in a place like San Antonio where the digital divide is so great. It's not the end all be all way to get the word out about things. But if you can reach more people and they can turn around and reach their neighbors, their community, their grandparents, that's how I was trying to help out. I got lots of shit. Can I say?
You can say shit. We're a late night show.
I got lots of shit for wearing a mask forever.
Well, I like your little logo, your little Puro Pinche logo, because I remember your face and then wait a minute, all of a sudden she's wearing a mask.
Yeah, well, so it's nice because my husband Eric is a graphic designer. So anytime I need him to change something, he'll do it. And I was like, let's put the mask on the logo. I just want people to know, I'm not anti-mask. I think we need to be safe. And even now, just had COVID for the most recent time in July. And we need to wear masks. We're in really crowded situations. But it's hard. It's hard to get those trolls that are always beating down the door and telling you. I mean, this is a funny thing. The Current made this article early on in the pandemic about here's the top 20 influencers or you need to follow in San Antonio. And the cover image was a photo that my husband and I actually took to promote the vaccine for the city. And so we're wearing our masks and we're out on the river walk and had our booster and the Band-Aid. And so the Current used that cover photo and they've shared that article multiple times throughout this year and it never fails. It brings out all the trolls and they were like, what kind of dummies are wearing masks outdoors? And the coronavirus is over, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, sure, whatever you say. We took that picture almost 2 years ago and the whole point was to show you that you should wear a mask. And we're on the Riverwalk where people recognize it's a downtown San Antonio staple. It's crazy just what people will say to you. But
it's funny. How many of those are bots though? How many of these bots are in here commenting on our stuff?
I don't know, because it was on the current social media.
Yeah, but they got to have some bots in there chiming in on some of these pages.
I think so, but there were definitely a lot of real people on
I just
there.
call them bots. At a certain point, I'm like, they're all
Yeah.
bots. They can't be real.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more bots on Instagram now and Twitter, and you can totally tell, when it's the same type of phrase over and over and over again. That's another thing. People, like, do your research before you share something. It's so hard to believe that we're still saying this, but like, don't fight the bots because they're not real.
Yeah.
And don't share false information. Like, just do a little bit of Google searching, try to find out what's true out there. I try myself to not fall, victim to any of that. But there's totally a lot of bots. In the influencer world, there are a ton of bots. So if you want to talk about bots and being an influencer, there's a lot of fake likes, follows, and engagement out there.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's and not every person knows how to identify them. But I think it's really important that people need to keep an eye out for what is real and what is fake in 2022.
So let's talk quickly about how you started Puro Pinche. Like it was years ago. You started this blog, right? That must have been during the early days of blogging.
Yeah. Yes, it was. There were actually blogs back then. There's not as many today, but unofficially started Puro Pinche in, I don't even know what year, 2008.
Okay.
And I started it because I would always go to Austin for concerts, and everybody in San Antonio would say, if you want to have fun, you have to go to Austin, right? Like, there's nothing to do in San Antonio. It's boring. That's old and tired now, but that's what was said. Mm-hmm. And a local artist actually even came up with a phrase, keep San Antonio lame, that people, it's meant to be tongue-in-cheek, but people take it literally, right? So he came up with keep San Antonio lame because he didn't want Austin to turn into San Antonio to turn into Austin. He didn't want it to be, commercialized, gentrified. And we see it now, right? You go to downtown Austin and all the original music venues are closed and there's condos in their place. Mm-hmm. Or there's noise ordinances and the venues can't even have those concerts anymore. So I was like, well, no, that's not true. There's plenty to do in San Antonio. You just don't know where to find it. And I started on Tumblr, which is also dating myself.
I had a Tumblr.
Yeah, a lot of people did 10, 12 years ago. And I started sharing flyers from everybody I knew that were either musicians, artists, chefs, festival organizers, community organizers. Excuse me. And it really took off. People used to re-blog the Tumblr posts all the time. Then finally, 2 years into it, I have a friend who, her and I would always attend the roller derby games, and they had a phrase, Puro Pinche Derby. I knew of Puro Pinche blues and music here in San Antonio from an older musician who is unfortunately no longer with us, Randy Garibay, and he had invented that phrase. And so I was like, I need a name for this thing that I'm doing. I can't just keep doing this under Stephanie Guerra. That's weird. Like, who's Stephanie Guerra telling people where to go, who to see? And my friend, she was like, I always talk about what's going on in San Antonio, but I make fun of, like the San Antonio isms, like going to fiesta with your chanclas and your hoop earrings and things like that. So she came up with the handle Puro San Antonio, and then mine turned into Puro Pinche, which was kind of like a fill in the blank, right? Like it could be Puro Pinche whatever, Puro Pinche Spurs, Puro Pinche Fiesta, Puro Pinche North St. Mary's Strip, Puro Pinche VodPod Media, like it was fun. And then it really started taking off. So it turned from the show list and event calendar into actually going out to every single one of those places and meeting people and connecting with them and finding out why they had so much trouble promoting their events or getting people there or connecting with the community. And then also it turned into me producing my own events and hosting my own events. It turned into a mix of things. Got to organize concerts, music festivals, be an ambassador, for the city through different brands and partnerships. People that were coming to San Antonio that wanted to do things here, that had a national company or organization, were always like, well, you want to talk to Puro Pinche? She's got her finger on the pulse. She'll know where to tell you, tell you where to go, or she can help connect you or help promote your event. And then that's when it kind of shifted to being more community engagement through meeting all of those people, right? I was like, wow, all these people are coming to San Antonio and they know there's something here, but they can't put their finger on it. They don't know what it is. They want to be in the San Antonio market, but we need to help shift the story about what San Antonio was and actually show them the true, authentic, right? Puro San Antonio. And I worked for city council a few times and got to see the behind the scenes of how the city promotes San Antonio. And then took that experience into what I was doing, and that's where everything shifted to more civic engagement and community engagement and being involved.
Yeah.
Politically too.
I mean, yeah, but see, you should be. I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, why is there such a differentiation and division between entertainment and arts with social and political? It's all intertwined, right? How we get our funding, who's being promoted, right? Who's getting access to certain venues, like you talked about. It's all the same.
I Puro Pinche, for years was free, and I did all the digging and searching for the flyers and events myself because I wanted to help the people that couldn't pay for $1,000 ad in any mainstream media. They couldn't get on TV. It wasn't a relevant event, and we have enough promotion of our Spurs, of Fiesta, and it was all the things that really built the community that weren't getting the spotlight and attention. And there really truly was nothing like it at the time. I am glad to see so many things that are promoting local culture in San Antonio now. We've shifted mainstream media and bloggers and journalists and influencers have gotten away from the big brand endorsements and corporate national campaigns and have really become hyper local promoters of wherever they live, and that's all I ever wanted, and it's really great to see.
Yeah, so we got to give you a shout out as well. So about 8 years ago, I was new to San Antonio, kind of new, and I was involved in a local community theater show, a play. And we were acting in the show, and you know how it is with community theater. It's we're also the marketers, right? We're also doing, our own costumes and wardrobes and everything, right?
Exactly.
And I somehow came across you promoting our show, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. Someone's got a hold of our show. Who is this person? And I think it was just on in your website or something.
Yeah.
And it was just
probably
cool.
Tumblr.
It could have been Tumblr, but I was like, okay, this is what we need, right? For community work, right? We're not picked up with the big theater. We're not a union, right? We're not,
Well, and because I had so many friends that are artists, performers, or work in the service industry, I already knew behind the scenes there wasn't a budget, to do that. And everybody wears 20, 30 hats, especially if you're in a nonprofit, doing all of these things too. You can't be all of those things plus the promoter. And it's just it's not possible. But if you don't have someone to help you do that, you can't make any money, right? You're not going to get the tickets sold. You're not going to get the eyes on your production. You're not going to get the clicks, the likes, the follows, subscriptions, people signing up. So I really it was a labor of love.
Yeah.
And a lot of it still is. I don't have a show calendar anymore because there's so many good ones out there now. And I really don't post as many events as I used to because of the pandemic and things that have been going on. And I haven't felt super comfortable a lot of times, with all the spikes in the cases, and now there's even more diseases on the way.
All sorts of stuff.
And same thing, how can I tell people oh, go out and party and be in thousands of people and I'm not doing it myself, or vice versa. If I'm telling people to stay home, but I'm out at, a 50,000 person festival, that's not keeping it puro. But you have to help. I am glad there's so many resources now, but people still need it. People still message me on Puro Pinche all the time and ask how they can get their event in front of my audience. And I truly try to share as much as I can
Yeah.
without any fees, without charging. Obviously, there's, brands and companies that want to like spend money to have videos created, flyers created, ads boosted, things like that. So that's where the money is involved. But I still try as much as I can to get the word out there and not charge anybody and just help. And it always comes back. People are always like willing to help me out if I need it, or they always reach out and ask, what they can do, or they invite me to their concert or their performance and give me free tickets, and that it makes me feel like there is always value in just giving a helping hand.
Yeah. And then, in this day and age too, it seems like everybody in the social media space is looking to go viral.
Right.
Everyone wants to be the next content creator, the next social media star, the next influencer.
That's the new word or phrase, content creator.
Yeah, content creator, which I wouldn't consider you a content creator, would you?
I
probably would.
Yes, and that's what's the hard part is because I think originally, as I've always been creating content, there wasn't a term for that. And so now it's like, well, what is a content creator? And it's like, well, truly at the base of the word, you were creating videos, pictures, images, graphics, podcasts, web shows, and that's something I've been doing for the last 10 years. So it's hard. There's a stigma around everything.
But listen, here's the thing with this show specifically. And I've been in all the scenes, right? I've been to all, like you talk about the boards, the performances, the concerts.
You invited me to speak at the Avance.
Yeah,
conference? Adelante.
Yeah.
Sorry, not Avance.
Yeah.
Shout out to both of them.
I almost forgot about some of this stuff, right?
A long time ago.
Yeah, and then we've been up and down the road. Right? We've been to Florida. We've been to other spaces,
Yes.
not together, but in the same space, doing these things. And so many people said, hey, Maximo, you need your own talk show. Well, here we are. We've built a table. Now, continuing along that same lines of representation, right, of the socio-political landscape, we should be building our own tables. There should be more platforms where we're highlighting and talking to people like yourself, to people like our partners, to people like, that have been at it, like the Mickeys and the Cheryls who've been at this thing a long time.
Exactly.
Right? Let's bring them on. Let's come in here and break bread.
Yeah.
Let's come in here and talk about the scene. Let's talk about your work. Let's help each other,
Yeah. I have noticed some local media outlets will bring people on as a guest spotlight or guest series or segment. They don't last that long. For some reason in San Antonio, where we are almost 70% Latino, we still have a really big issue of diversity and representation in our media, and who actually are the anchors and journalists that are telling our stories for us. And it's weird, right? Because it's not just a local problem. We just saw recently they canceled all these Latino shows and movies,
from Netflix and stuff, right?
Everything, from Marvel movies to Netflix shows to HBO Max. Every single platform has canceled shows with Latino leads mid filming. It's crazy to me that the makeup of our country Latinos will soon become a majority, and we still can't see ourselves in our local news, on the paper, in a movie, in a Netflix show. And it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, and again, I use that as an example because, we see it all the time. Yes, we see the cancellations on the subscription, the Hulus, the Netflix.
Yeah.
Our actors are struggling. But at the same time, what are we going to continue to do? I'm not the type of person, you're not the type of person that's sitting around and going to complain about it. We're going to say, okay, it's time to build something. It's time for us to get up and do our thing. So for those folks watching, you can subscribe, you can like, you can comment, you can share, because this is Black and Brown owned. This is Black and Brown created. Now, we don't come around and say VodPod Media, the Black and Brown show. No, we should have a show for everybody because we're mainstream.
Yeah.
We are the culture.
Yeah.
We are the people,
Exactly.
right? You and I look like the majority of people around this country.
Right.
To be quite honest, right? In the circles that are making true influence happen.
Yeah.
Right. Our music, our swag, everything that we put into how we live is pop culture.
Right. I saw some tweets the other day from some well-respected white music critics, and they were talking about oh, can't believe I slept on Bad Bunny, and
who was ever sleeping on
Bad Bunny?
People
were telling me, but I didn't realize he had the influence and popularity that he does to have, to be because of Bullet Train. He's in the movie, and I'm like, have you all not noticed that he has been selling out arena shows? His tickets are thousands of dollars. He's got every clothing line, shoe line, fashion. Everything revolves around Latin music right now. But yet these white male music critics are still like, what is Latino music?
Exactly.
And I'm like, how? I don't understand how you can miss it.
See,
it's in your face.
And that's the thing. It's so interesting because they've been playing this bait and switch game for the longest time. They take our culture, they hate us, they take our culture, they give it their own little spin, and then it's brand new again.
For sure.
Like I remember when Miley Cyrus started twerking. and everyone was like, oh my gosh, look at this new move. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That ain't a new move.
Yeah. That's just the first time you've seen a white girl do it.
Yeah. And I'm just like, come on, man. And that's an old example. That's I don't even know where I pulled that example from, but
yeah. Well, exactly. Same thing. Justin Bieber sang in Spanish, and all these people, they don't want to embrace it until somebody that looks like them is handing that to them. So it's difficult. And that is, I have never said, oh, Puro Pinche is, only by a Latina for Latinos. I've tried to showcase all of the people doing things, but help people of color who don't have the representation and really spotlight them and give them that platform and help them out, because we don't have the resources that everybody else has.
Yeah. And it's funny because I joke with people and I tell folks, we have everybody on this show. Yeah. Black people, brown people, white people. In fact, these days, you don't know who's who anyway. Right. So we have everybody. Yeah, exactly. We have a little bit of everybody on the show.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, when I was younger, you make assumptions, and now I'm like, I never know who's
you
Latino
don't know.
or
no,
not.
Nobody knows.
We are always same thing. Like when people are trying to tell me, about being white passing and stuff, and I'm like,
see, we got to stop with that shit too. We got to stop with that
But I get where you're coming from. But why does it matter? You don't know my culture, my background. Where I came from. But why does in the grand scheme of things? What point are you trying to prove?
I think the point that people are trying to prove is that if you're white passing, you get that privilege of being accepted, being more well-liked versus someone who may be more dark-skinned.
For sure.
Which I think there may be a case for.
Yeah.
But in brown communities, it's like we don't need to be hating on our own. This is classism.
Yeah.
This is classism, and we don't need it.
There's a lot of classism, and I 100% agree. Of having privilege because of the tone of your skin. No matter what ethnicity you are. But exactly when it's another Latina telling me that, and it's like, well, what can I do about it? What can I do to help, or what can I do to not make it seem like I'm hurting, somebody or something, or whatever I'm working on. What can I do?
I hear you, but some of our people take it too far.
For sure.
I had someone tell me that J-Lo hated Latinos because she dyed her hair blonde, and I'm like, listen, man,
oh shit.
If we gonna go that route, I'm like,
trouble.
man, we get in trouble. We all get in trouble.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's a very difficult conversation that I think about every day. It is. It's really tough. And I'm just like, can't we all just get along?
We are all going to get along because everyone's going to come to this table and get some of this work. We want to have you. We want to have the conversations too. I mean, at the end of the day, people like you, people like me, we're not really going anywhere. So let's figure out a way to agree to disagree if we need to.
Right.
I mean, we really don't need to be pointing our cannons at each other with this sort of stuff.
No.
Because that's what the people at the top want. They want to see us fighting. They want to see us people in the streets shooting each other.
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff. But it's here at the table where we want to have these discussions anyway, and we want to broadcast them. We want to showcase them, and we want to talk about good ideas in a positive and engaging, sort of mindset or fashion, I should say. With that note, I got to ask you, what else is good? What are you listening to these days? I mean, what are you doing? How are you spending your time for fun?
Well, I got married in December.
Yay! Congratulations.
Thank you. My husband's
he's in the other room, everyone.
In the other room, creeping. So it's been fun and enjoyable because he's from Abilene. So it was getting to be a tour guide, to have fun with my husband and take him to all these places he's never been before. And he's very easygoing and sociable. So he likes to join me, for events and meet new people. And we're always, attending new bar, restaurant openings, going to concerts. We like to travel when we can safely. And then I have a son who just started college at Northwest Vista. He's in the Alamo Promise program, which is amazing. Definitely something everybody should strive for is free tuition at colleges. And we're just getting used to now navigating him, being a driver and being in school and what he wants to do when he grows up. Make sure I'm teaching him the right way, that there is no right way. We're always going to mess up as parents. We just went to go see Leon Bridges in Austin at the new Moody Center, which is their new venue that there is lots of chisme around that the Spurs would be moving there.
Yeah, that's right.
So there are a few Austin games in this new season. I personally don't think the Spurs are going to Austin, but people have rumors. It was a really cool venue. It always makes you think why doesn't San Antonio have this? And I want to see us do it here, and I want to see us build those things, especially if they can be owned by people of color. But Leon Bridges and Khruangbin are two of our favorite artists right now. And they're both from Texas, Fort Worth and Houston. And then, of course, I love all the local bands, so we still try to go see them as much as possible. The Carver has been doing a lot more local concerts and bringing in people from across the region. So we closed out their year with one of my favorite bands, The Suffers from Houston. So that was really neat. And I'm excited for, the venues in San Antonio, even though they're going through a lot right now with construction and funding and things like that. But San Antonio is a music city. We were a bigger music city back in the 50s and 60s with all the Chicano soul movement than Austin was. And then things shifted, and, I don't think anybody wants to forget those roots. We like going to Jaime's Place on the west side. I don't know if you've been there or not yet. Yeah, we love Jaime's Place. And then we're in Southtown, so we try to get out and walk on the river, walk in the neighborhood. Yeah. I was a little sad today on our walk because I did notice a lot more gentrification in the area.
I mean, you really can't stop it.
You can't.
Yeah.
But I try to take that with me everywhere I go. What I'm doing. We just went to Denver recently to visit some friends and family, and just seeing, okay, what's Denver doing to combat this? What does their entertainment community look like? They had a really cool festival called Underground Music Showcase, and it was 3 days, and they had hundreds of bands and DJs take over 70 venues in one area in Denver. And I was like, man, that is so awesome. And I know San Antonio is building towards things like that, and I hope we get there. But yeah, we're just having fun, trying to stay safe, trying to save money. Hay comida en la casa. My parents like to go out a lot, and we try to hang out with my parents. They worked hard for all of their lives. My dad just retired from the fire department, and my mom makes flower crowns. Yeah,
we got to get some of those crowns.
She's going to be at Muertos Fest this year. I think, fingers crossed, she has an application, and I'm pretty sure she was confirmed. But, my mom and dad actually grew up working in the curio shops in the Mercado, which is Market Square. But, they actually worked in the farmers market building, which is the one under the highway. And when I was little, I was, back behind the counter with them while they were working, because that's what they had to do. They didn't have daycare or anywhere to leave us. And, it's really nice to be able to see them retire finally and enjoy their free time. They're the reasons why I'm so puro and pinche.
Little bit of both.
Yes.
But yeah, we got to give a shout out to your mom. What is it? Bellissima?
Bellissima Beads. Yes. She started off making jewelry, and then she shifted to crowns. Like I said, they grew up working in the curio shops there, but my mom's family is from Laredo, and so they were always at the markets there. My grandparents also, like, their livelihood was, they were the original pickers. I think, like Mexicans, like, we're some of the OG pickers. They were going to the garage sales and, finding the stuff on the curb, picking through it, turning around, going to the pulga, selling it.
Fixing it
They
up.
did that for, like, my grandparents did that for, like, 30 years, like,
Wow.
forever. They did it for a long time. And so my mom got a really good grasp of, like, vending, and negotiating and dealing and selling and talking to people. And my dad, same thing when he used to work in Market Square. They started to talk to everybody and see how to make a living out of that, but also make friends and enjoy the city that they lived in. So we've always been downtown, always been, like, huge advocates for bringing people downtown, the heart of the city. And that's why I still want to try to live here. It's just really expensive to try to do that. But I love my parents, and I am glad that they instilled, the social butterfly in me and keeping things true to our culture, and just really, really, really helping and giving back, because they will always try to help someone out.
Yeah. And did people tell you look like your mom?
I do look like my mom. It's weird because I look more like one of her sisters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I do look like my mom.
I didn't know if people told you that.
They do sometimes. They do sometimes. And they also can never believe that my parents are their age. But they're really young at heart. They try to go dancing every weekend. They
Really?
live at, like, back in the day, Tucker's right here used to have the soul spot every week. My parents were there every week. They go to Jaime's place. I took them once, and now they go on their own all the time. They're out more than we are. They love going out. They're always like, where's the new place? They go to Luna. They go to, oh my God. They're everywhere.
They're all over.
They're everywhere. I can't even think of all the places that they go, but that's how I got to know all parts of the city too, is because they weren't afraid to go anywhere. So they will travel all over the place.
Okay.
They won't really travel out of the city because they're stubborn.
Yeah, well, there's enough to see and love in San Antonio anyway.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And it's interesting because we're not like a San Antonio show, but we have enough people around here where we have just, if you're watching, you get a good feel for what San Antonio's like.
Yeah.
Because everybody's here, you're ingrained in the scene, in the culture, and what side of town is this, and the people here. And
I told my husband when he first moved here, I said, everybody's going to ask you where you went to high school.
Oh my gosh.
It's really weird. It's a San Antonio phenomena. Like, and just tell them, just make up one, or, but it is weird. We don't get the question, like, where'd you go to school? And they're talking about college. Everybody's talking about high school. I see that, like, now a lot of people definitely have a lot of parodies about Puro San Antonio things. That's one of those things that's up there. But yeah, I love that the show talks about everything everywhere. Yeah. And I think that's another shift that I had in Puro Pinche was it used to be super hyper local, like what's going on St. Mary's Strip and Southtown Blue Star. And now it's like, these are the topics that are happening to Latinos in every city, not just San Antonio.
Yeah, that's so interesting to think about. And so hey, I'm glad you came in. We hadn't seen each other for so long.
I'm glad you had Mondo on the show.
Yeah, and Mondo was fun.
I know you reached out to me when you were first starting this, like in the fall, and just timing is everything.
It's all good.
Like I said, I've had COVID twice since then.
Yeah.
It's been a rough year, and I hope that it gets better for all of us.
Yeah.
But I really am glad that you're bringing more people to the podcast table, and highlighting people, because we still need it.
Yeah, we got big plans for this table, for the studio. And so thank you for coming in. We're going to go to the big finish here in just a moment and cap off the show. It's about 8 p.m. Central, 8:30 Central. You've got the AMSI San Pluto show with AMSI Austin. So stay tuned to VodPod Media here with these banger shows that we're creating here. Big shout out to Guyland Jackson. Big shout out to everyone coming through here.
Thank you, Guyland.
Doing the darn thing at the table. And you're going to see us right back here next week. So you might as well subscribe now. But we're gonna go ahead and let Stephanie close out the show. Give us a big goodbye. Any party words?
I thought you were gonna tell me to do a grito, and then I was like,
you can do whatever you want to do. But we want to just let you get the closing words. I get enough words on the show, so we're gonna let you get the closing words. Thank you so much for being here, for coming through. The hour always goes by so quick.
Yes. We talked a lot.
Time flies when you're having fun, though. So give us some closing words. Give us some goodbyes, and we'll see everybody next week. We didn't have any cafecito. We need to have like a whole plática table set up with the candle, the tacos, everything.
Yeah, exactly. No, I do want to give a shout out to Guylan because, you know, I met him years ago when I had a weekly live web show, and he was in the studio there with us all the time and working on his own things. He already had things going, and he's kept it up for this long. I know every time he has a new idea or project, he's always like, Stephanie, this is what I'm working on, and it's always good to hear from him. And you all are doing big things, and I think it's kind of good, you know, like we're people that are behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And you don't always see that as much until you do something like this, you know, where you're on camera and now you know like all the inner workings of like what's going on in your head and what you've been working on and who you collaborate with and who you know. And I'm really grateful that you invited me on, and I think that's the spirit of what I do in Puro Pinche, is just continuing to try to connect with more people or connect people and keep our San Antonio growing and our culture growing. And make sure to follow me on social media.
So where do we follow you at?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Puro Pinche, PuroPinche. There are some imitators out there, but my logo is my face, so you can't miss that.
You're gonna miss her.
There's so many Puro things going on, I can't keep up, but I try to. And if anybody ever has any questions or just wants to start a conversation on there, I always try my best to respond. So hit me up.
All right, there it is, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Adios.
Ta-da! Ta-da!
I'm like, we're looking that way.
Yeah, I know. He always tells me don't look. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, the cameras are all over, girl.